Good morning from a hotel room. As promised, I'm going to deliver the scripture breakdown of Malachi, the book in the Old Testament, the last book of the Old Testament. We're going to break down chapter 1 today. So if you started following from the first Malachi video, I gave you instruction to be reading chapter 1. Read, study it. I've been just in chapter 1 for a couple weeks now. It takes time to really study it and break down these scriptures and understand the meaning. And if you don't have time to do that, that's why I had this channel. So please subscribe and follow along. Again, this is Malachi chapter 1. We're going to go through all the scripture and break it down. I am always reading and talking from the NIV Bible. I have the Beautiful Word by Zondervan Bible. That's what I'm in. So again, just to take note for that. Some Bibles, it can sound different, but we all have the same meaning, right? All right, so chapter 1, the first little section is titled, Israel Doubts God's Love, okay? God says, I have loved you, but you asked me, but how? How have I loved you? And I was like, whew, what a question right there. These people of Judah, the ancestors of Abraham, Moses, the things that God did and how he provided for them, like they have really forgotten the past, right? And no wonder their spiritual life is suffering. Their spiritual life has just become like dead. And so then God speaks through Malachi, and he brings up Jacob and Esau. Okay, Jacob and Esau were brothers. They were twins of Isaac and Rebekah, the grandsons of Abraham. And it says, I have loved Jacob, but Esau I have hated. So we start off with that. And, when you read that, if you're just reading the Bible and you come over those words, and you're probably like, that's pretty harsh. Like, I thought that's pretty harsh. So I was like, we really need to dig into this. Because if you read down into verse 4, he brings up Edom. Okay, and so I looked in the chronological Bible, kept reading this Bible, and of course I went to Google, okay? So, and then you have to go back and you have to look at the story of Jacob and Esau. It is worth going back and reading. So you can look in the book of Genesis, chapter 27, starts there. We see how Rebekah, who is their mother, tells Jacob to basically trick his father Isaac. Do you remember this story? Into giving him Esau's blessing. He got him to dress up like in the animal skin because Esau was a hairier man. Esau was the oldest, and so Isaac had planned to give Esau his blessing. Rebekah got Jacob to follow along with her plan, and so he tricks Isaac and the blessing goes to Jacob. So of course, it enrages Esau, right? To the point where Jacob has to flee. He has to leave his home. Okay, and then Esau, later on, he marries a woman from Ishmael. And later we see Esau come to live in the country of Edom. And eventually the brothers are united. Jacob wrestles with God right before their reunion. This is all in Genesis. And Esau becomes the father of the Edomites. That is Edom, okay? So Edom is a hilly, dry land, and this area is neighbors to the land of Judah, to the land of the Israelites. So Jacob settles in Bethel, and God called him to go there, and it is here that God renames him Israel, okay? And he says in Genesis chapter 35, verse 11, a nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings among your descendants. So then we get later on the 12 sons of Jacob, eventually the Israelites. We see the Edomites continue on into Jesus's time with evil kings, okay, and just not good stuff. So here in Malachi, those first few verses seem harsh when he says, I have loved Jacob, but I have hated Esau. But Jacob here represents the Israelites, and Esau represents the Edomites, the ones who have done evil. Okay, so that was a lot of symbolism or in-depth just right there that is important to know when you're reading this, because otherwise you just feel like, oh gosh, God hates them. Like, so it's important. So then we start into verse 4 through 5. And in these verses, God is saying the evil nations, the evil people, they may continue on. They might rebuild, but God will judge the wicked. He will judge those who do evil because he promised this. He made a promise that he would judge the evil, and he is going to hold to that promise. He always does. Ultimately, he is showing his love for the Israelites here. So now we move into the next section of chapter 1 that starts in verse 6, and it is titled Breaking Covenant Through Blemished Sacrifices. In verse 6, God speaks of the relationship between a father and a son, a slave and a master, and how there should be some honor there. There should be reverence and respect. And he starts calling out the priest here who aren't doing this. They are sacrificing defiled animals at the altar of God. Okay? The priests here are the ones responsible for teaching the people, offering pure sacrifices, and respecting God. But they were offering sick, crippled, and just impure animals. And this was their first offense. Okay? By offering these unacceptable animals for sacrifice, they are showing contempt. We've heard that word, contempt. The end of verse 7 uses contemptible. So I thought this word kept coming up. This needs to be defined biblically. Like, what exactly does this mean? And the biblical meaning of contempt is a feeling or action of disrespect for God, people, and God's commandments. And it's often associated with pride and arrogance. So after researching this, God is pretty clear on how he feels about contemptuous behavior. If you look in Proverbs 3, verse 34, it says, God opposes the contemptuous and extends grace to the humble. So God encourages us to basically be humble and respectful, right? Especially these priests. These priests are representing God, like in the temple. They are supposed to be leading these people. So he is calling out the priests for using blind and lame animals for sacrifice, and ask, would you offer the same to your governors? And as we read on into verses 10 through 14, which are the last verses of chapter 1, we see that God is not pleased. He is the Lord Almighty. Great is his name, and they should be treating his temple, his name, their offerings as something of high importance, of reverence. This is a matter of the heart. Don't sacrifice to the Lord if it's done with feeling from a place, if it's not done from a place of feeling in the heart, of genuine love. He doesn't want you going through the motions. He doesn't want you going through the acts of religion, like it's something I have to do, it's something I'm supposed to do. No. Don't put on the fake display. So this is the first warning, the first self-check to those priests. And chapter 1 ends with the statement, I am a great king, and my name is to be feared among the nations. And again, people who are just reading the Bible, sometimes when they come across that, my name is to be feared among the nations, they think, oh, like we should be afraid of God. We should be like trembling fear. Fear here, feared means to be deeply respectful of God, to treat God with the utmost seriousness and obedience, not a trembling fear. It's reverence for God. And if you don't know what reverence means, the biblical meaning of reverence is just to be in awe of God, in awe of his word and his laws. okay? That's important. So this can definitely be something we can learn from the priest here, their actions, okay? We should show fear of God, reverence, and also not allow our worship to be routine, to be a going through the motions thing. It shouldn't be acts of religion, but come from the heart, come from just that awe of God, come from the love of God, come from our heart. And sometimes we have to do a genuine heart check. Are we not feeling it? Are we feeling like He's not stirring in us? Like, what needs to change for us to have that fear, that reverence of God, where our worship is genuine? It comes from the heart. Sometimes worship is not easy. Sometimes it has to come from a place of pain or, of discipline. But even if we come to God and be like, look, I'm not feeling it right now. I know my worship kind of sucks, but I'm just trying to get that fire back. I'm trying to get that feeling, that deep awe of love for you back. I promise you, He'll meet you there. So that ends chapter 1 of Malachi, and now we're going to start reading chapter 2 and keep reading it and studying it. And I'm going to meet you back here for another video on that in about a week or so. The title of chapter 2 is Additional Warning to the Priest. So we know the priests are still, they got some more things they need to handle up on, and we're going to talk about that here. So again, subscribe, save this. If you are new to this channel, I'm happy you're here. And there are other Old Testament Bible study playlists that you can go back and look at. I try to keep these videos around 10 minutes. Sometimes it goes over. Sorry about that. But quick and easy, so we can get in the Word and we can understand His Word more and just stir up that good worship, that good understanding and knowledge of God.